Your childhood home contained secrets, proper secrets, things that made routine impossible. Then the 60s happened, where we modernized and gutted everything, declared it old-fashioned nonsense. Except it was not nonsense. It was sophisticated engineering disguised as simple design. Today, we look at 12 features that defined British homes for generations but don't exist anymore. What we lost will genuinely shock you. These corrugated iron bunkers represent survival itself. When war came in 1939, the British government faced a terrifying question. How do you protect millions of civilians from bombs raining from the sky? Their answer? The Anderson Shelter. By September 1939, 1.5 million had been distributed, with another 2 million following the later years. They measured 6.5 by 4.5 feet and were partly buried, then earth-covered. They were remarkably bomb-proof, yet incredibly cramped, draughty, and prone to flooding. Families huddled inside with tea and blankets, listening to bombs fall while sitting in puddles. Many still survive today. But what about when you needed to communicate? Here's where things get truly ingenious. Before smartphones, intercoms, or even telephones, British homes had a communication system running on nothing but breath and cleverness. They called them speaking tubes. Brass or copper pipes, 1 to 2 inches across, threading through walls connecting different floors. But how did anyone know you wanted to speak? Simple. Blow sharply into your end, sounding a whistle at the far end. That distinctive shriek meant attend immediately. The recipient would then remove the whistle and speak. But there was a catch. These tubes transmitted everything, from coughs, arguments, and even private conversations. The choice was simple: keep the tubes or keep your secrets. Speaking of things children loved that parents feared. Enter the laundry chutes. Those metal-lined shafts running from upper floors straight down to basement laundry areas. Children absolutely adored them, as they would drop toys to hear them clatter, shout to hear echoes, and some adventurous ones even slid down themselves. Parents, meanwhile, lived in constant dread, fearing for the safety of their children in case they decided to climb into them. Today, laundry chutes are considered fire hazards, and most are even sealed up. But anyone who grew up with them remembers that satisfying thump of bundled socks disappearing into darkness. Up next, let's talk about something we'd rather not, but absolutely must. Well into the 1960s, millions of British families had nothing else but those small timber sheds positioned close enough to reach quickly, yet distant enough to keep the stench away. Those were outside toilets. Inside, a wooden bench with a circular opening. Beneath that, either an aluminum bucket or a cesspit dug straight into earth. Now here's where it gets properly grim. Someone had to empty those buckets. Enter the night soil men, carrying people's business away. Then came the post-war housing boom, and indoor bathrooms became standard practically overnight. By the 70s, outside toilets became rare curiosities rather than daily necessities. So, have you ever wondered why grand old houses felt so much larger than their square footage suggested? The answer is perfectly hidden behind doors you barely noticed. Walk through any proper Victorian or Edwardian home and you'll find 2 entirely different staircases telling 2 entirely different stories. The grand staircase announced your social standing to every visitor, but tucked away near the kitchen lurks something altogether different: the servant stairs. These were steep and narrow passageways meant to be strictly utilitarian. They allowed house staff moving between floors without being seen by family or guests. Invisibility was the entire point. Yet, these stairs could be veritable death traps, as they lacked uniformity in design, while many had no handrails whatsoever. This was among the best definitions of the social divide, literally built into the walls. Now, on to something that might sound utterly mad until you think about it properly. In old British homes, a tiny mechanical lift hidden inside walls never carried a soul, yet revolutionized domestic life. They called it a dumbwaiter. Imagine hosting dinner in 1890. Your kitchen sits 2 floors below the dining room, which was a standard arrangement in any respectable house. The cooks finished your roast and it needs to reach the table while steaming. Without this device, some poor housemaid climbs 42 steps carrying scalding platters, navigating narrow servant stairs before arriving breathless, hoping nothing spilled. The dumbwaiter changed everything. Servants below loaded dishes, pulled ropes through pulleys, and then staff above retrieved everything moments later. It's now time to talk about yet another feature that kept the filth of Victorian streets from ever crossing the threshold. Imagine you have just returned from the village in 1905. Your button boots are absolutely caked in mud and perhaps horse droppings, and you are about to step into a home with carpets that cost a year's wages. Enter the boot room. It was a proper chamber of transformation, positioned strategically between the brutal outdoors and your pristine interior. Built-in benches let you sit whilst wrestling off those tight-laced boots. Dedicated cubbies stored each family member's footwear separately. Now compare that to modern entrance halls with their delicate carpet runners. In fact, we'd be lucky to get a coat cupboard. If you're liking these home features so far, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more promising videos. Moving on, how did the master of the house summon his staff without ever raising his voice? Usually mounted in kitchens or servant halls, these boards displayed every room that could summon assistance. Rows of bells, each labeled with room names, rang when someone pulled cords upstairs. Small indicators either dropped or remained visible, showing which room called. More sophisticated versions included clock mechanisms, showing elapsed time since the summons. They were deemed as servants' command centers, often dictating daily rhythm and priorities. But as domestic service declined after World War I, these boards defied time and remained because removal meant significant work. In fact, many still exist today, seen as silent relics mounted on kitchen walls. Those ornate iron arms swinging inside old fireplaces were not decoration, far from it. They were sophisticated cooking equipment. They were known as swinging cranes and featured horizontal arms mounted on vertical pivots, allowing pots to swing in and out of fires without reaching into flames. The mechanism was pretty simple. You would load your pot, swing it over the fire, adjust the height to control temperature, then swing it out when done. But just like the other features, the arrival of cooking ranges with hobs meant open fire cooking vanished. The cranes eventually claimed their position among relics of a vanished culinary world. Milk doors were ingenious insulated compartments with 2 access points, solving a uniquely British problem. The milkman arrived early in the morning, opened the exterior door, deposited glass bottles, and closed it again. The homeowner would simply open their interior door later and retrieve fresh milk. The insulation kept milk remarkably cool, often several degrees below outside temperature. Slate or zinc lining provided additional cooling. When doorstep delivery declined and refrigerators became standard, these clever little chambers were sealed up or forgotten entirely. Onto something dark. Imagine concealed spaces built for desperate survival. During Catholic persecution under Elizabeth I, families constructed priest holes to hide clergy from authorities hunting them. Master craftsmen created false walls, hidden trapdoors beneath floors, and spaces inside chimneys only found by dismantling buildings entirely. They were barely large enough for crouching, sometimes equipped with chamber pots and water for extended concealment. Many remained successfully hidden for centuries and were only revealed during 20th century renovations. These were not clever conveniences like other features we have discussed. They were simply survival equipment during brutal religious persecution. Which feature do you remember from your childhood home? Let us know in the comments below.